A rude talk show host destroys guests for ratings, and today he's targeting some washed-up kung fu actor with the cruelest attack of his career. The bully mocks the quiet guest's accent, makes racist jokes, then crosses every line by humiliating his dead mother on live television. But what the host doesn't realize is that this calm, dignified man sitting across from him is Donnie Yen, a martial arts legend who's spent decades mastering not just combat, but the deadly art of quiet dignity. The studio falls silent as the master responds not with fists, but with words so powerful they cut deeper than any blade. While the host expected anger or tears, he's getting a philosophical beatdown that's about to go viral and destroy his career forever. The audience watches in stunned silence as decades of cruelty meet 5,000 years of wisdom. The cameras keep rolling as the bully realizes he just picked the wrong fight with the wrong warrior. What happens when a master of respect faces a master of disrespect? Will the host survive learning that some legends fight with honor instead of fists? What happened next would shake the entertainment world for the rest of its pathetic existence. Before we jump back and tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The first light of dawn painted the Beverly Hills skyline in muted gold as Donnie Yen rose from his hotel bed with the fluid precision of a man who had mastered the art of mindful living. At 61, his movements carried no trace of stiffness or hesitation. Each gesture deliberate, economical, perfect. He padded barefoot to the window overlooking the sprawling city below, where early commuters already crawled through traffic, like ants pursuing their daily survival. The irony wasn't lost on him. In a few hours, he would descend into that chaos to appear on America's most watched daytime talk show, hoping to share something meaningful about discipline and respect with a culture that seemed to value neither. His morning ritual began as it had for decades. Tai Chi forms flowed like water, each movement a meditation in motion. The worn wooden training dummy in the corner bore witness to countless hours of practice, its surface polished smooth by his knuckles and forearms. Today, like every day, he honored the ancient forms that had shaped not just his body, but his spirit. The tea ceremony came next, water heated to precisely the right temperature, leaves steeped for exactly the proper time. As steam rose from the delicate porcelain cup, he opened the stack of handwritten letters that had arrived yesterday. Students from around the world shared their progress, their struggles, their small victories. Each letter reminded him why he did this work, that a young man in Detroit had stood up to bullies at his school, choosing de-escalation over violence. A grandmother in Chicago had found peace through the breathing exercises he'd taught during his last seminar. A former gang member in Los Angeles credited Yen's philosophy with saving his life. These were the moments that mattered, not the movie premieres or magazine covers, but the quiet transformations that happened when people learned that true strength came from within. His phone buzzed with encouragement from his film crew and students worldwide. Today's television appearance was meant to promote his latest project, but more importantly, to plant seeds of wisdom in American soil that desperately needed them. He finished his tea and placed a faded photograph of his late mother on the nightstand. Her weathered face smiled back at him, radiating the gentle strength that had shaped his character. "I will honor you today, Mama," he whispered in Cantonese, touching the frame gently. "And I will honor what you taught me about facing those who mistake cruelty for power." The morning air at BNC Studios carried the acrid smell of yesterday's destruction as janitors swept up the debris from another victim's public execution. Producer Monica Valdez pushed through the glass doors at 6:45, her coffee already cold, her stomach already knotted with dread. Truth Bomb with Bradley Krause had earned its reputation as television's most brutal gladiator arena, where reputations came to die and Bradley fed on the carnage like a shark sensing blood in the water. Monica had produced the show for 3 years, watching it transform from legitimate journalism into something that would have made the Roman Colosseum blush. She settled into her cluttered office, surrounded by victim files and legal disclaimers, and opened today's target folder. Donnie Yen, some washed-up kung fu actor trying to stay relevant. The dismissive description made her wince. She'd done her research. This wasn't some desperate has-been. This was a respected martial artist and philosopher whose films had inspired millions. But Bradley didn't care about inspiration. He cared about ratings. The predator himself arrived at 7:30 like Caesar entering his domain, demanding his usual breakfast and berating the catering staff for crimes as minor as lukewarm orange juice. Bradley Krause at 55 had perfected the art of psychological warfare, studying his guests' vulnerabilities like a surgeon mapping organs before cutting them out. "Monica," he bellowed from his throne-like office chair. "What do we have on the Chinese guy? I don't care what he actually is. I care what we can make him cry about." Bradley spread Yen's personal photos across his desk like tarot cards of destruction. His finger stopped on an image of an elderly woman with kind eyes. Mother, deceased. 5 years ago. He cared for her during perfect. Bradley circled the photo with a red pen, his smile predatory. Family values, Eastern philosophy, respect for elders. I'll tear it all down. These kung fu guys are all about honor and dignity, right? Let's see how much honor he has when I'm finished with him. Monica's coffee turned to acid in her stomach. She needed this job. Her daughter's college tuition depended on it. But watching Bradley systematically destroy decent people had become a daily exercise in self-loathing. Bradley spent the next hour rehearsing cruel one-liners about chopsaki, movies, and practicing exaggerated bowing gestures that mocked Asian culture. His writing team encouraged every vicious impulse, feeding him ammunition designed to humiliate and devastate. "This should break him nicely," Bradley said, holding up the circled photo of Yen's mother. The black sedan pulled into BNC Studios parking lot at 9:15, and Donnie Yen emerged like a man stepping into a temple rather than a battlefield. His dark suit was simple but elegant, his small bag containing only essentials, a reminder that a warrior needed little beyond his principles and his training. The contrast between his presence and the studio's toxic atmosphere was immediate and profound. Where others rushed past with heads down and shoulders hunched, Yen moved with unhurried grace. He greeted the parking attendant in fluent Spanish, asking about the man's family with genuine interest. When an elderly woman struggled with directions to the visitor's entrance, he gently guided her, ensuring she felt safe and valued. Inside the building, his effect on the staff was remarkable. Crew members accustomed to being invisible suddenly found themselves acknowledged as human beings. He learned names, asked about their work, and listened to their answers with the attention most people reserved for celebrities. In the green room, he encountered Jenny Rodriguez, a 22-year-old intern whose hands shook as she struggled to organize coffee orders for Bradley's team. The girl was clearly terrified of making mistakes in an environment where errors were punished swiftly and cruelly. "May I help?" Yen asked quietly, his voice carrying no judgment, only kindness. Together, they sorted the orders with military precision. As they worked, Jenny's nervousness melted away. She found herself sharing her dreams of becoming a real journalist, not just someone who fetched coffee for bullies. "The strongest people," Yen told her gently, "are often those who appear most gentle. Remember that when others try to make you feel small." Makeup artist Dorothy Williams, a 58-year-old veteran of the industry, recognized something special in her new client. As she applied minimal touch-ups to his already dignified appearance, she mentioned her grandson's struggles with school bullies. "Tell him this," Yen said, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "A tree that bends in the storm survives while the rigid oak breaks. Flexibility isn't weakness, it's wisdom." But through the thin walls of the green room, they could hear Bradley's team rehearsing their attack. Mocking kung fu sounds, racist accents, cruel laughter about fortune cookies and ancient Chinese secrets. The final blow came clearly through the wall. "Let's see how wise this fortune cookie is when I destroy his dead mother's memory on live TV." For the first time since arriving, Yen's composure cracked, just slightly. His jaw tightened, his breathing deepened, and his hands, resting peacefully in his lap, curled into fists before slowly opening again. The warrior was preparing for battle. The truth bomb theme music exploded through Studio A at 11:58. Its aggressive beat designed to prime the audience for combat. 200 studio guests settled into their seats, many already sensing the electric tension that preceded Bradley Krause's most vicious performances. The host himself took his throne-like chair with the confidence of a gladiator who had never lost a fight. "Ladies and gentlemen," Bradley announced with his trademark predatory grin, Today we have a guy who thinks he's still Jackie Chan. Please welcome martial arts has been Donnie Yen. The introduction drew scattered, uncomfortable laughter from an audience unsure whether they were supposed to be entertained or horrified. Yen entered with quiet dignity, his bow to the audience respectful but brief, his handshake with Bradley firm but not competitive. The opening questions seemed almost reasonable by truth bomb standards. Bradley asked about recent films, about martial arts philosophy, about the difference between movie fighting and real combat. Yen responded with thoughtful, humble answers that revealed depth and wisdom. He spoke about discipline as a path to freedom, about respect as the foundation of strength, about the responsibility that came with power. The studio audience began warming to his sincerity. Here was someone who spoke without ego, who answered questions with genuine consideration rather than practiced sound bites. In the control room, Monica watched the approval ratings climb, a phenomenon that always made Bradley dangerous. Yen's authenticity connected with viewers. Bradley's frustration mounted. His subtle mockery wasn't landing. His condescending tone was being met with grace that made him look petty by comparison. The warrior was winning through sheer moral force, and Bradley couldn't tolerate that. The escalation began slowly. Bradley started mocking Yen's accent, making exaggerated, bowing gestures between questions. He asked condescending questions about ancient Chinese secrets and mystical Eastern wisdom, his tone dripping with sarcasm that made the audience increasingly uncomfortable. "But tell me, Donnie," Bradley said, leaning forward with theatrical interest, "do you really believe all that fortune cookie philosophy, or is it just marketing for the tourists?" Yen's response was measured, explaining how philosophy without practice was empty, but practice without philosophy was blind. His words carried the weight of lived experience, of decades spent not just talking about wisdom, but embodying it. The audience's nervous laughter was fading, replaced by growing respect for the guest and discomfort with their host's increasingly cruel behavior. Camera operators exchanged worried glances. In the control room, Monica argued with the director about cutting to commercial, but the order from above was clear. Keep rolling. Bradley's predatory smile widened as he sensed his moment approaching. "But let's talk about what really matters to you, Donnie," he said, signaling for his secret weapon to appear on screen. "Your family traditions." The studio monitors flickered to life, revealing a doctored photograph that made the audience gasp in collective horror. The image showed Yen's beloved mother in a fabricated, humiliating situation, her dignified face superimposed into a context designed to destroy her memory and mock everything she had represented. "Now this is interesting," Bradley said, his voice dripping with manufactured concern. "Your mother here seems to have some very interesting ideas about traditional Chinese values." The cruel laughter that followed came only from Bradley himself. The studio audience sat in stunned silence, recognizing they were witnessing something beyond entertainment. This was character assassination of the most personal kind. Bradley pushed deeper into the wound he had opened. "I mean, look at this. Woman, is this the kind of respect for elders you talk about? Because from where I sit, it looks like your family's traditional values might need some work." Camera operators found themselves unable to focus properly, their hands shaking with discomfort. In the control room, Monica pounded on the director's shoulder, demanding they cut to commercial, but he remained frozen at his station, bound by orders from network executives who demanded ratings at any cost. "Tell me, Donnie," Bradley continued, his voice rising with theatrical cruelty, "what would your dear departed mother think about her son making a career out of fake fighting? Do you think she'd be proud of her little boy playing dress-up for Hollywood?" The manufactured photograph remained on screen, a grotesque violation of everything sacred about family and memory. Yen sat perfectly still, his breathing controlled through years of meditation training. His only visible reaction was the slow closing of his eyes, as if centering himself through some internal ritual that Bradley could neither understand nor touch. The studio's silence became deafening, broken only by the hum of cameras and the distant traffic outside. Even Bradley's most loyal audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing they were witnessing something that crossed lines no television show should cross. But Bradley, feeding off the tension like a vampire, drawing blood, prepared to deliver his killing blow. His smile widened as he prepared to speak words that would haunt him for the rest of his career. "I bet she's spinning in her grave," he said with deliberate cruelty, knowing her son turned out to be such a disappointment. The silence that followed. Bradley's final cruelty was profound and absolute. Even the camera operators stopped moving, creating a moment of suspended time that seemed to stretch toward eternity. In that silence, Donnie Yen slowly opened his eyes, revealing not anger or hurt, but something far more powerful, the serene intensity of a master who had found his center in the storm. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, forcing everyone in the studio to lean forward. The microphone strained to catch words that carried more weight than any shout could have managed. "My mother," Yen began, his tone gentle but unwavering, "taught me that true strength is not found in the loudest voice or the cruelest words. She showed me that a real warrior protects those who cannot protect themselves, including those who attack from their own pain." He turned to look directly at Bradley, his gaze neither harsh nor forgiving, but deeply compassionate in a way that cut through the host's defenses like a blade through paper. "I see before me a man who is very hurt inside, who believes that hurting others will somehow heal his own wounds. But, sir, cruelty never heals the cruel. It only deepens the emptiness they carry." The audience remained transfixed, many wiping away tears they hadn't realized were falling. Camera operators found themselves adjusting shots not for dramatic effect, but because they genuinely wanted to capture every word of this unexpected masterclass in dignity. Yen continued, his voice growing stronger without growing louder. "My mother taught me that when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. But she also taught me that every person, no matter how lost, can choose to be better than their worst moment." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the studio like morning mist over still water. "The question that remains, Mr. Krause, is not whether you can hurt me. You cannot. The question is what you will choose to be when this moment passes. Will you choose to be someone your own mother could be proud of?" The studio remained speechless for 10 full seconds before erupting in thunderous, sustained applause that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than mere entertainment. It was the sound of recognition, of witnessing something authentic in a world grown cynical about such possibilities. 12:47 p.m. The show ended with Bradley Krause speechless for the first time in his 15-year career, his usual closing remarks abandoned as Donnie Yen exited the stage with the same quiet dignity he had maintained throughout the assault. The audience remained standing, their ovation continuing long after the cameras stopped rolling, but the real earthquake began in the pockets and purses of that studio audience. Within 3 minutes, smartphone footage of Yen's response was uploading to every social media platform simultaneously. The first Twitter post went viral before Yen reached his dressing room. TikTok videos spread like wildfire across teenage feeds. Instagram stories captured the moment from dozens of angles. Hashtag Donnie Yen Wisdom began trending globally within the hour. The clip transcended cultural boundaries, translated into dozens of languages, shared by everyone from Hollywood celebrities to philosophical scholars to everyday people who recognized authentic wisdom when they heard in the BNC offices, panic spread faster than the viral videos. Sponsor phone calls jammed the switchboard, major advertisers demanding immediate contract cancellations. Network executives stormed into emergency meetings as negative sentiment toward the show reached 89% across all demographics. International news outlets picked up the story. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, all running segments about the martial arts master who conquered cruelty with compassion. Religious leaders quoted Yen's words in sermons. Philosophy professors assigned the clip as required viewing. Meanwhile, in his windowless dressing room, Bradley sat alone, staring at his phone as comment after comment called him a heartless monster and praised Yen's incredible grace under fire. For the first time in decades, Bradley Krause was reading about himself and feeling ashamed. Jenny Rodriguez found Monica in the hallway, clutching a manila folder with shaking hands. "Ms. Valdez, I found something. I wasn't supposed to see these." But Monica opened the folder to find financial documents showing mysterious payments to the show from shell companies. The amounts were substantial, the timing suspicious, and the source completely unknown to normal network accounting procedures. Jenny, where did you get these? They were in Mr. Krause's locked drawer. I was cleaning his office and it was open. And I knew something was wrong. Monica studied the papers, her producer's instincts recognizing a story far bigger than one cruel talk show host at 6:30 p.m. Monica knocked on Donnie Yen's hotel room door with trembling hands, the damning documents clutched against her chest like evidence of a crime she was only beginning to understand. When Yen opened the door, still wearing his simple dark suit, his calm presence immediately steadied her frayed nerves. Ms. Valdez, please come in. She spread Jenny's discovery across his small table: bank statements, wire transfer records, shell company registrations, all pointing to a conspiracy far more sophisticated than random television cruelty. Mr. Yen, today wasn't random. Bradley's attack on you was a paid assassination, character assassination. Someone hired him to destroy you specifically. Yen studied the documents with the methodical attention he brought to learning new fighting techniques. His finger traced the money trail from Meridian Development Corporation through a maze of shell companies before landing in Bradley's personal accounts. The payments match perfectly with shows where Bradley destroyed specific people, Monica explained, her voice gaining strength as she revealed the pattern. Community leaders, teachers, youth mentors, all people building something positive. In struggling neighborhoods, Yen's jaw tightened as the implications became clear. My schools. The children I teach. Exactly. You were targeted because your martial arts programs teach discipline and respect to inner-city kids. Someone wants those programs eliminated. They researched Meridian online, discovering Vincent Reeves's empire of predatory development. The pattern was methodical and ruthless, identifying neighborhoods beginning to stabilize through community programs, eliminate those programs through media destruction of their leaders, buy properties cheap during the resulting chaos, then redevelop for luxury markets. Look at this map, Monica said, spreading out printed pages. Every person Bradley destroyed in the past 2 years, their programs were located exactly where Meridian planned developments. Yen connected the final dots. They manufacture decline, destroy hope, create despair, profit from the destruction. And they're not finished. I found targeting lists. There are community leaders in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, all scheduled for the same treatment. The weight of revelation settled over them both. This wasn't just about one cruel television host or even one greedy developer. This was systematic warfare against the very idea that communities could lift themselves up through discipline, respect, and shared purpose. Yen stood and walked to his window, looking out over the city lights that suddenly seemed less beautiful and more ominous. They didn't want to destroy me, he said quietly. They wanted to destroy what I represent, the possibility that people can choose strength over weakness, hope over despair. He turned back to Monica, his eyes carrying new resolve. Then we show them what that choice really looks like. 7:45 p.m. Yen and Monica sat surrounded by documents and laptops in his hotel room, the city lights below twinkling like stars in a constellation of corruption they were only beginning to map. The magnitude of Reeves's operation demanded a response as methodical and disciplined as any martial arts form. We need a strategy, Yen said, applying the same systematic thinking he used when choreographing complex fight sequences. In martial arts, we study our opponent's weaknesses before we strike. Reeves has made himself vulnerable through his own arrogance. Monica brought her media expertise to bear on the problem. I have contacts at legitimate news outlets, people who've been waiting for a story like this. But we need more than financial records. We need victims willing to speak, documentation of the damage, proof of the larger pattern. They divided responsibilities with military precision. Yen would reach out to previous show victims, using his newfound platform to build trust and gather testimony. Monica would work her industry contacts, identifying journalists hungry for a story that combined corporate corruption, media manipulation, and community destruction. I spent years researching detective roles, Yen explained, pulling up notes. On his laptop, the investigation process becomes instinctive. Follow the money, identify patterns, build unshakable evidence. They established secure communication protocols, created encrypted email accounts, and developed code words for sensitive information. Monica's experience producing investigative Segments proved invaluable in understanding how to build a case that would withstand legal challenges. Their research revealed Meridian's sophisticated operation. Every targeted community program was purchased by shell companies at below market prices after the programs collapsed. Property values fell predictably when community anchors disappeared, allowing Reeves to acquire entire blocks for development. He's not just buying buildings, Monica realized, studying the acquisition patterns. He's buying futures, destroying what these neighborhoods could become and replacing it with what makes him money. Yen's phone buzzed with messages from around the world, martial artists, community leaders, and ordinary people inspired by his television response. The viral moment had created an unexpected army of supporters who understood instinctively that this fight was bigger than one man's dignity. "We're not alone in this," he told Monica as they shook hands like partners entering battle. "In martial arts, we learn that the strongest fight is the one that protects others. Tonight, we begin that fight." 9 a.m. the next morning. Monica's Honda Civic wound through East Los Angeles, passing neighborhoods that told stories of struggle and resilience. In equal measure, their first stop was Pastor Eugene Mitchell's church, where hope had once flourished before Bradley Krause's televised assassination destroyed everything the elderly minister had built. Pastor Mitchell, 67 and bearing the weight of defeat in his stooped shoulders, greeted them in his empty community center. 6 months ago, this space had buzzed with the energy of 150 children receiving after-school care, homework help, and the kind of mentoring that changed lives. "Brother Krause didn't just attack me," the pastor explained, his voice carrying the measured cadence of a man who had preached through personal storms. "He knew exactly where to hit, questioned my financial management, suggested I was stealing from church funds. Within 2 weeks, our sponsors pulled out. Parents stopped trusting us with their children." Yen studied the empty classroom, seeing ghosts of potential destroyed by systematic cruelty. The attack seemed unusually well-researched. "That's what troubled me most." He knew details about our budget that weren't public information. It felt personal, like someone had given him ammunition specifically designed to destroy what we'd built. Their next stop revealed an identical pattern. Rita Santos, 51 and fierce despite her program's destruction, met them outside the former Girls Rise Center. Her mentorship program had taught inner-city girls self-respect and career skills before Krause's attack, made her seem incompetent and corrupt. "He didn't just attack the program," Rita said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "He attacked everything these girls believed about their own worth. Made them think success was a lie, that people like me were just using them." As they toured the abandoned center, Rita pointed out details that revealed the sophistication of the assault. He knew about a minor bookkeeping error from 3 years ago, something only someone with inside access could have discovered. Standing outside the former community center, now marked for demolition, Yen noticed Meridian Development, coming soon, banners surrounding the entire block. Every property bore identical signs, as if the company had known exactly when and where to position itself for maximum acquisition opportunity. "This isn't just business," Yen said, his hands curling into fists despite his controlled demeanor. "This is warfare against hope itself." They systematically identify communities trying to lift themselves up, then destroy the very programs that create positive change. The pattern was becoming undeniable. Reeves had weaponized media to manufacture the decline he needed for profitable development. 2 p.m. Monica's car sat in the shadow of the gleaming Meridian Development Tower in Century City, its 40-story glass facade reflecting the California sun like armor designed to blind observers to the darkness within. They had come to study their enemy in his natural habitat. Vincent Reeves's public image emerged from their research like a carefully constructed lie. Press releases portrayed him as a visionary developer who revitalized urban communities and brought economic opportunity to underserved areas. Glossy brochures showed smiling families in luxury condominiums, young professionals enjoying artisanal coffee shops, tourists exploring authentic urban experiences. The reality painted a different picture entirely. Reeves had built his fortune through a systematic process of manufactured decline, targeting neighborhoods just beginning to stabilize through community programs, eliminating those programs through character assassination of their leaders, then purchasing property cheaply. During the resulting chaos, "Look at this timeline," Monica said, spreading documents across her dashboard. Chicago, 2019. Youth Center director destroyed on local television. Property values dropped 30%. Meridian bought 6 blocks. Atlanta, 2020. Community garden leader humiliated on talk radio. Neighborhood declined. Luxury condos announced within months. The pattern extended beyond LA to 12 major cities where similar operations had occurred. Each required the same formula: identify community anchors, destroy their credibility through media manipulation, profit from the resulting despair. Yen studied Reeves's political donations, contributions to judges who ruled favorably on zoning disputes, city council members who approved development projects without community input, media outlets that provided friendly coverage of his urban renewal efforts. His influence extends everywhere the money needs to flow, Yen observed. He's not just buying properties, he's buying the entire system that's supposed to protect communities from predators like him. Through the lobby's glass walls, they watched Reeves himself, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, gesturing angrily during a phone call, his face bearing the particular arrogance of someone who had never been told no by anyone who mattered. "He looks like a man who has never faced real consequences for his actions," Yen said quietly. "In martial arts, we learn that such people are dangerous because they believe their own invincibility. But that same arrogance becomes their weakness when they finally encounter something they cannot buy or destroy." Monica started the car, understanding they had seen enough. Their enemy was more powerful than they had imagined. But power built on corruption always carried the seeds of its own destruction. 6 p.m. Yen returned to his hotel to find Jenny Rodriguez waiting anxiously in the lobby, her young face tight with fear and determination. The intern who had accidentally discovered the financial documents now carried information that made their investigation exponentially more dangerous. "Mr. Yen, they know about you and Ms. Valdez investigating. Mr. Reeves's people called the studio this afternoon." Monica arrived moments later, her face flushed with anger and fear. "I've been fired. No explanation, just security escorting me out of the building. They confiscated my access cards, my company phone, everything." But the intimidation campaign extended far beyond employment retaliation. Yen's phone rang. Marcus Washington, his head instructor at the Los Angeles Martial Arts School, calling with disturbing news. "Sifu, we've got problems." Official-looking men came by this morning claiming to be building inspectors. They found violations that somehow didn't exist yesterday: fire code issues, structural concerns, permit discrepancies. "They're threatening to shut us down unless we pay thousands in immediate fines." Yen felt the familiar tightening in his chest that came before combat. How are the students and parents reacting? Scared. 2 families already pulled their kids out. Mrs. Chun was crying when she came to get her daughter. Said she couldn't risk having her child in an unsafe facility. Jenny revealed the scope of their exposure. "I've been documenting things for months, hoping someone would eventually listen. But today I overheard phone calls. They know about your investigation. They know about the documents. They know everything." Monica's voice cracked as she shared the most personal attack. "My daughter Sarah got threatening calls at her college today. Someone told her that her mother was interfering with legitimate business interests and that students could face academic consequences for their parents' poor choices. The message was clear: abandon the investigation or watch everything they cared about be systematically destroyed." Reeves wasn't just covering his tracks. He was escalating the conflict, demonstrating the reach of his power and the futility of resistance. Yen stood at his window, watching suspicious figures in the hotel parking lot. Men in expensive suits who didn't belong in a tourist area, positioned with the casual alertness of professional surveillance teams. "Jenny, I need you to go home and act normally. Don't contact us unless it's an emergency." He turned to Monica, his decision crystallizing with martial arts clarity. "They've made this personal now. They've threatened children, destroyed livelihoods, attacked the very people we're trying to protect." He called Marcus back. "Lock down the school. Don't let anyone in you don't know personally. We're at war now." 8 a.m. the next morning. The basement of Pastor Mitchell's church had been transformed into a war room, its concrete walls lined with documents, photographs, and the grim determination of people who had lost everything to Vincent Reeves's systematic cruelty. Yen surveyed his unlikely army, community leaders whose life's work had been destroyed, united now by shared purpose and his example of principled resistance. In martial arts, Yen began, addressing the circle of 12 people who represented thousands of affected families. We learned that individual strength means nothing without proper coordination. Today, we become something Reeves has never faced: organized opposition that cannot be bought, intimidated, or destroyed. Pastor Mitchell would rally religious communities across denominational lines, using his network of ministers to spread awareness of Reeves's predatory tactics. Rita Santos would mobilize parent networks and women's organizations, turning maternal protective instincts into political force. Monica would handle legitimate media strategy, reaching out to investigative journalists hungry for a story that combined corporate corruption with community destruction. Jenny, despite her youth, had proven invaluable as a digital native who understood how to document evidence legally and build social media campaigns that could circumvent traditional gatekeepers. We create the Community Defenders Network, Yen explained, outlining their strategy with the precision he brought to choreographing complex fight sequences. Each person commits to recruiting 10 others. We grow exponentially, like ripples in a pond. They established secure communication protocols using encrypted messaging apps and anonymous social media accounts. Yen taught them basic digital security: how to recognize surveillance, how to document evidence without compromising sources, how to communicate safely when phones might be monitored. Reeves fights dirty because he's never faced clean opposition, Rita observed, her voice carrying the steel of someone who had watched teenage girls lose hope. He's used to destroying individuals. He doesn't know how to fight a movement. Each person received specific assignments based on their strengths and networks. The pyramid structure would create accountability while protecting the core group from complete exposure if any single cell was compromised. They joined hands in closing prayer. Yen felt the familiar center that came before combat. In martial arts, we learned that the best defense is a strong foundation. Today, we begin building that foundation together. They were no longer victims. They were warriors. 3 p.m. Dr. Sarah Kim's cluttered UCLA office overlooked a campus where privileged students complained about parking while inner-city communities fought for survival. The 48-year-old professor of urban sociology had spent her career studying the academic theory behind what Yen was experiencing as brutal reality. What you're describing is called manufactured decline, Dr. Kim explained, pulling thick research volumes from floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Developers identify neighborhoods beginning to stabilize through community programs, then systematically eliminate those programs to accelerate property devaluation. She showed Yen peer-reviewed studies proving that communities with strong youth programs, active churches, and engaged mentorship networks naturally resisted gentrification pressures and maintained stable property values, making them unprofitable for predatory development. The key insight is that community cohesion is measurable and predictable. Destroy the programs that create that cohesion, and property values fall according to mathematical models. It's social engineering through strategic destruction. Reeves had been using this academic research as a blueprint for systematic community destruction. The targeting wasn't random. It was scientifically precise, based on data showing which programs provided the strongest community anchors. Dr. Kim introduced Yen to a network of researchers, community organizers, and urban planners who had been documenting similar patterns across the country. They'd been waiting for a high-profile case that could expose the nationwide scope of manufactured decline operations. Detroit, Atlanta, Phoenix, Seattle, we've tracked identical patterns in all of them. The same shell company structures, the same media manipulation tactics, the same acquisition strategies, Dr. Kim revealed, spreading maps that showed the cancer-like spread of Reeves's operations. A young doctoral student named Maria Gonzalez had written her dissertation on media manipulation in urban development. The beautiful thing about what happened to you on television is that it broke their model. They expected humiliation and got moral authority instead. That's never happened before. The academic network had been building evidence for years but lacked the public platform to expose it effectively. Yen's viral moment had created that platform, a way to make abstract research into concrete human drama that ordinary people could understand and support. You represent something they can't account for in their models, Dr. Kim concluded. Authentic moral leadership that can't be bought, destroyed, or replicated. That's why they're so desperate to eliminate you. You're proof that their system isn't inevitable. Yen realized the fight had expanded beyond Los Angeles, beyond even his own schools and students. Then we make this the fight that exposes them all. 11:30 p.m. Donnie Yen stood in shadow across from the Meridian Development Tower, its 40 stories of glass and steel gleaming like a monument to corporate arrogance. Security patterns had become predictable over 3 nights of observation. Guards rotated every 2 hours, cameras swept in mechanical arcs, motion sensors protected only the ground floor approaches. His infiltration skills, developed for action films but rooted in genuine martial arts training, served him well in this real-world application. Parkour techniques learned for movie stunts carried him up service ladders and across rooftop gaps. Meditation breathing kept his heart rate controlled as he navigated laser grids and pressure plates. The executive suite on the 40th floor revealed the true scope of Reeves's operation. File cabinets contained detailed psychological profiles of community leaders across 12 cities, complete with family histories, financial vulnerabilities, and strategic recommendations for character assassination. Wall-mounted maps marked target neighborhoods with military precision, showing planned development sites and the community programs that needed elimination. Most damning were the recorded phone calls. Hours of Reeves explicitly discussing using character assassination to eliminate community programs, bragging about his media manipulation network, and detailing bribes paid to local officials in multiple cities. Yen photographed everything with a small camera, building an evidence file that could destroy Reeves's empire and expose the nationwide conspiracy. But the discovery that chilled him most was a targeting list for the next phase: a veterans support group in Detroit, a senior center in Atlanta, a Native American youth program in Phoenix. The pattern was accelerating. Success in Los Angeles had emboldened Reeves to expand operations, targeting more communities with increasing aggression. But as Yen prepared to leave, motion sensors he hadn't detected flooded the office with security lights. Footsteps approached from multiple directions, too coordinated to be random patrol, too well-positioned to be coincidental. Reeves emerged from the shadows with the satisfied smile of a predator who had laid the perfect trap. "Mr. Yen, I've been expecting you." Security guards surrounded him as Reeves revealed the sophisticated surveillance that had tracked their investigation from the beginning. "Did you really think you could investigate me without my knowledge? I've been 3 steps ahead since the moment you walked out of that television studio." Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer with each second. The trap had been months in the making, designed to discredit everything they had discovered by framing Yen as an unstable criminal whose evidence was inadmissible. "Your students lose their school tomorrow," Reeves whispered as handcuffs clicked around Yen's wrists. "Your friends will be next." The setup was perfect in its cruel precision. Vincent Reeves had anticipated every move, monitored every communication, and orchestrated Yen's downfall with the same systematic thoroughness he applied to destroying communities. As police led Yen away in handcuffs, news vans were already arriving to capture the perp walk that would define the media narrative. Unstable foreign actor with obvious grudges from talk show incident, Reeves explained to the first wave of reporters, playing the victim role with Academy Award-worthy conviction. He couldn't handle legitimate criticism and turned to criminal behavior, breaking into my office, stealing confidential documents, clearly displaying the kind of violent tendencies we've come to expect from his industry. The media narrative was already written, disseminated through Reeves's network of influenced outlets before Yen reached the police station. Headlines painted him as an unhinged celebrity whose ego couldn't tolerate public criticism, who had escalated from verbal confrontation to criminal trespass and corporate espionage. All their carefully gathered evidence was now fruit of the poisonous tree, inadmissible in court because it had been obtained through illegal means. Months of investigation, testimony from victims, financial documentation proving the conspiracy, all of it worthless because Yen had been caught red-handed stealing the very documents that could have saved communities across America. Monica watched the news coverage from her apartment, her daughter calling in tears from college as classmates shared social media posts mocking Yen's arrest. The viral hero who had inspired millions with his dignity was now being portrayed as just another entitled celebrity who couldn't handle criticism. Ginny Rodriguez sat in her cramped apartment, watching her carefully documented evidence become worthless overnight. Every file she had discovered, every pattern she had tracked, every piece of the conspiracy puzzle, all of it tainted by association with Yen's criminal investigation. Pastor Mitchell knelt in his empty church, praying for guidance as his congregation questioned whether they had followed the right leader. Rita Santos fielded angry calls from parents who felt betrayed, wondering if the man they had trusted was just another fraud. The Community Defenders Network, 12 people strong that morning, had fractured to 3 by midnight. Most couldn't risk association with someone now painted as a criminal. Regardless of their private beliefs about his character, A.S. Yen was processed into LAPD Central Division. Reeves stood in his restored office, surveying the empire he had protected through superior strategy and unlimited resources. "You should have stayed in Hollywood where you belong," he whispered to the city lights below. "Some fights are bigger than kung fu movies." The war for America's communities appeared to be over before it had truly begun. 6 a.m. Donnie Yen sat in LAPD Central Division's holding cell, maintaining perfect posture on the uncomfortable metal bench despite 3 sleepless nights. The concrete walls and steel bars couldn't contain the discipline that had sustained him through 6 decades of martial arts training. His cellmates were a cross-section of urban struggle, men broken by systems rather than inherent evil. Instead of withdrawing into defensive isolation, Yen observed them with the compassion he brought to teaching, recognizing pain beneath their hardened exteriors. When tension erupted between 2 inmates over a perceived slight about gang territories, Yen's quiet voice cut through the brewing violence. "Brothers, the cage is already built around us. Why do we build more cages inside our hearts?" His de-escalation technique was simple but profound, acknowledging each man's pain while redirecting their energy toward mutual respect. Within minutes, potential enemies were sharing stories of children they missed, mothers who worried, dreams deferred but not destroyed. Carlos Mendez, a 19-year-old gang member with teardrop tattoos marking deaths he'd witnessed, became fascinated by Yen's philosophy. "How you stay so calm, man? They treating you like a criminal when you just trying to help people." "True strength," Yen explained, using the limited space for impromptu lessons, "is not the absence of fear or anger. It is choosing wisdom when emotion would be easier." He showed Carlos and 3 other inmates basic meditation techniques, demonstrating how discipline of body led to discipline of mind. The concrete cell became a dojo where grown men learned that power over oneself was more valuable than power over others. "You're teaching us more about being strong in 3 days than the streets taught us in 3 years," Carlos said as news arrived that Yen's bail had finally been approved. Outside, Monica worked frantically with public defender Patricia Hoffman, navigating a legal system designed to move slowly while their community programs faced immediate destruction. 50 supporters maintained vigil with Free Donnie Yen signs, but the media narrative remained toxic. A.S. Yen was finally released. Carlos and his cellmates stood and bowed respectfully, a gesture of honor between teacher and students that no amount of manufactured controversy could diminish. The warrior emerged from captivity unbroken, his spirit strengthened by proof that dignity could flourish even in humanity's darkest corners. 2 p.m. Donnie Yen emerged from LAPD Central Division to find an unexpected army waiting. 50 people holding Free Donnie Yen signs, their faces bearing the determination of those who recognized authentic moral leadership when they witnessed it. The viral moment that had started with one man's dignified response to cruelty had grown into something neither Reeves nor his media manipulation network could control. Hashtag Justice for Donnie Yen had exploded across global social media platforms, transcending cultural and linguistic boundaries. International martial artists shared their own experiences with bullying and discrimination. Hollywood celebrities posted solidarity messages. Philosophy professors assigned the original talk show clip as required viewing in ethics courses. Marcus Washington led the vigil with military precision, organizing shifts so the peaceful protest continued around the clock. Parents whose children attended Yen's school brought homemade signs and genuine outrage at the obvious frame job. "This man taught my son that strength comes from protecting others, not hurting them," Maria Santos told news cameras. Anyone who knows him knows this arrest is a lie. The movement had grown beyond Monica's wildest projections. Churches across denominational lines rallied to Pastor Mitchell's call for justice. Women's organizations connected with Rita Santos demanded investigations into Meridian's practices. Local politicians, initially silent, were now calling for transparency as their constituents made clear which side of the issue mattered to their votes. International news outlets had picked up the story independently, sending investigative teams to examine Reeves's operation. CNN's Financial Crimes Unit was analyzing shell company structures. BBC's urban affairs correspondents were documenting similar patterns in 12 American cities. The conspiracy was too large and too systematic to remain hidden once serious. Journalists began asking questions, but the most powerful force was organic. Ordinary people sharing the original talk show clip with friends and family. Each viewing creating new converts to the idea that dignity could triumph over cruelty, that wisdom could defeat bullying, that communities could protect themselves when they stood together. "This isn't about me anymore," Yen told the crowd, his voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. "This is about every community that refuses to be destroyed by those who profit from our despair." Standing before his supporters, Yen realized that Reeves's trap had backfired spectacularly. The attempt to discredit him had instead made him a symbol of resistance against corporate predation that communities across America finally had words to describe. 7 p.m. Monica's phone rang with a call that would change everything, a nervous voice identifying himself only as a friend inside Meridian, who had been inspired by Yen's example to find his own courage. Thomas Butler, a 35-year-old accountant whose conscience had been slowly eating him alive, was ready to risk everything to expose the truth. "I've watched Mr. Reeves destroy communities for 5 years," Butler explained during their clandestine meeting in a downtown coffee shop. "I kept telling myself I was just doing my job, just processing numbers, not responsible for what the company did with those numbers. But seeing how that man handled himself on television, seeing the courage it takes to stand up to bullies, I can't stay silent anymore." Butler's evidence was devastating because it came from inside the system with complete legal authority. Internal emails showed Reeves explicitly discussing bribing media figures and targeting community programs. Recorded phone calls captured him laughing about manufacturing decline and harvesting desperate communities. Financial records detailed the systematic corruption of judges, city council members, and journalists across 12 cities. Most importantly, Butler's evidence was legally admissible, obtained by someone with authorized access rather than through illegal break-ins. Everything they had lost when Yen was arrested could be recovered through legitimate whistleblower testimony. But Butler also brought urgent warnings. "Mr. Reeves is accelerating everything because of the public attention. He's planning to complete all property acquisitions and demolish remaining community centers within the week before any investigations can stop him." The timeline was brutal. 3 more community centers had received eviction notices overnight. Yen's martial arts school was scheduled for emergency demolition due to fabricated structural concerns. Similar operations in Detroit and Atlanta were being fast-tracked to avoid the scrutiny that Los Angeles had generated. "He also has backup plans," Butler continued, his hands shaking as he revealed the full scope of Reeves's desperation. "If the Yen frame job doesn't work, he's prepared to destroy Ms. Valdez's reputation, frame Pastor Mitchell for financial crimes, and eliminate anyone who threatens his operation." Monica realized they were racing against a man who had unlimited resources and no moral constraints. Legal victory through proper channels could take months they didn't have, while Reeves was moving at corporate speed to eliminate evidence and complete his acquisitions. "We need to expose him so completely and publicly that his political protection evaporates immediately," she told Butler as they prepared to part. "Legal justice isn't enough. We need to create a firestorm that destroys his credibility before he can destroy more communities." Butler agreed to wear a wire for final recordings that would make denial impossible. 9 a.m. the next morning. Patricia Hoffman's law office buzzed with the controlled chaos of a legal team trying to save communities while navigating a system designed to protect wealth over justice. The public defender had taken Yen's case pro bono, recognizing it as the civil rights battle of her generation, but her news was a mixture of hope and harsh reality. The good news is that Thomas Butler's evidence gives us everything we need to expose the conspiracy, she explained, spreading documents across her conference table. Internal communications, recorded conversations, financial records. It's all admissible and devastating. But the legal system's deliberate pace worked in Reeves's favor. Even with ironclad evidence, stopping him through courts will take months. Emergency injunctions require hearings, appeals, counter-appeals. By the time we win legally, he'll have completed his acquisitions and destroyed the evidence. Meanwhile, Reeves was weaponizing the media narrative around Yen's arrest with surgical precision. Counter-protests organized by hired agitators were escalating tensions at community rallies. Talk radio hosts painted the Community Defenders Network as anti-business extremists, disrupting legitimate development. Property rights organizations filed lawsuits claiming the protests interfered with lawful commerce. The strategy was working. 3 city council members who had initially supported investigations were now calling for balance between community concerns and business interests. 2 judges who might have granted emergency injunctions had recused themselves, citing potential conflicts of interest that traced back to Reeves's political donations. He's not just fighting us in court, Monica observed, studying media coverage that painted Yen as an unstable celebrity whose supporters were economic terrorists. He's fighting us in the court of public opinion, using the same character assassination techniques that built his empire. But Yen saw opportunity in Reeves's desperation. In martial arts, we learned that an opponent's greatest strength often becomes their greatest weakness when they overextend. Reeves has built his power on manipulation and corruption. That same system makes him vulnerable when the light of truth shines on it. Patricia's phone rang with news that crystallized their impossible timeline. That was the city planning office. They've expedited all of Reeves's demolition permits. Your school and 5 other community centers are scheduled for destruction starting tomorrow morning. Yen stood and walked to the window, watching ordinary people go about their daily lives, while a predator prepared to destroy the very communities that sustain them. Legal victory isn't enough, he said quietly. We can't wait for justice. We have to create it. The time for defensive action was over. Now they needed to force the confrontation on their own terms. 4 p.m. Outside B&C Studios, 2 crowds faced each other across police barriers like armies preparing for battle. Supporters of Donnie Yen held signs demanding justice and transparency, while counter-protesters funded by Reeves's network waved banners defending property rights and business freedom. The tension was thick enough to cut with a blade. Inside the studio, Vincent Reeves had commandeered Truth Bomb for a special episode designed to cement his victory. He planned to portray himself as a legitimate businessman under assault by foreign agitators and their useful idiots, using the same character assassination playbook that had destroyed dozens of community leaders. But Reeves hadn't anticipated the wild card that Bradley Krause had become. The host, broken by guilt and haunted by the community response to Yen's original appearance, had spent sleepless nights confronting the lives he had destroyed for ratings. Monica's firing had eliminated the last buffer between his conscience and his actions. When Yen appeared unexpectedly outside the studio, not as a scheduled guest, but as the voice of a community demanding to be heard, Krause made the first genuinely moral choice of his career. Despite orders from network executives, despite threats to his job, despite his own fear, he quietly directed security to allow Yen access to the studio floor. The producer who had replaced Monica tried desperately to prevent the confrontation. But the crowd's pressure and Krause's assistance created an unstoppable momentum. Thomas Butler positioned himself in the audience with recording equipment that would capture every word for legal proceedings. Monica coordinated with legitimate journalists planted throughout the studio as the Truth Bomb theme music blared and cameras went live. Reeves sat confidently in the host chair, prepared to deliver the performance that would destroy his enemies once and for all. His opening monologue painted him as a victim of harassment by unstable celebrities and anti-business extremists who threatened American economic freedom. But as the camera swept the audience, Donnie Yen rose from his seat and began walking down the aisle toward the stage. The crowd erupted, supporters cheering, counter-protesters booing, genuine audience members sensing they were about to witness something unprecedented. Reeves's confident expression faltered as he realized his carefully scripted narrative was about to be disrupted by the one variable he couldn't control: authentic moral authority facing manufactured victimhood in real time, before a live television audience. The final confrontation between truth and corruption was about to begin, broadcast to millions of viewers who would witness whether justice could triumph over unlimited wealth and systematic manipulation. The confrontation that followed was not a physical fight, but a moral and intellectual battle choreographed with the precision of Yen's greatest action sequences. As Reeves attempted to have security remove the unstable intruder, Bradley Krause's voice cut through the chaos with unprecedented authority. "Let him speak," Krause declared, his first act of redemption broadcast to millions. "For 15 years, I've given voice to cruelty. Today, we hear from courage." What unfolded next was a masterclass in truth-defeating deception. Yen approached the stage with the same controlled grace he had shown during the original attack, his presence commanding attention through moral force rather than theatrical gestures. "Mr. Reeves," Yen began, his voice carrying clearly through the studio's sound system, "you have built an empire on the systematic destruction of hope. Today, we examine what you have built and why you built it." Thomas Butler's recordings began playing over the studio speakers, Reeves's own voice discussing manufactured decline, laughing about harvesting desperate communities, detailing bribes paid to corrupt the very systems meant to protect citizens from predators like him. As each damning piece of evidence emerged, community leaders in the audience stood to testify. Pastor Mitchell spoke about 150 children left without after-school care. Rita Santos described teenage girls who had lost hope when their mentorship program was destroyed. Parent after parent shared stories of communities fractured by Reeves's systematic assault on their foundations. Reeves attempted his practiced deflections, questioning the evidence's legality, attacking Yen's character, claiming victimhood by foreign agitators and anti-business extremists. But each defensive move was countered with documentation, testimony, and the moral authority of people who had suffered for his profit. "You ask what gives me the right to investigate you," Yen said, his voice growing stronger without growing louder. "I answer, what gave you the right to destroy communities that were building something beautiful? What gave you the right to profit from manufactured despair?" The studio audience watched a battle between two philosophies: Reeves's belief that wealth justified any means, and Yen's conviction that true strength served others rather than self. Every question Reeves asked was answered with evidence. Every attack on Yen's character was met with testimony from lives he had touched positively. As the weight of evidence became overwhelming, Reeves lost the composure that had carried him through decades of manipulation. His final threat, captured live on television, confirmed everything Yen had accused him of. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, or what I can destroy." The predator had revealed himself completely on live television before millions of witnesses. The words had barely left Reeves's mouth when federal agents entered Studio A, their timing coordinated with prosecutors who had been building cases across multiple jurisdictions. The live television confession had triggered immediate legal action that even Reeves's political connections couldn't delay or deflect. "Vincent Reeves, you're under arrest for racketeering, bribery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and violation of federal anti-corruption statutes," the lead agent announced as handcuffs clicked around wrists that had signed orders destroying dozens of communities. The empire that had taken decades to build crumbled in hours. Properties acquired through manufactured decline were frozen pending investigation. Community programs marked for destruction received emergency court protection that no bought judge could overturn. The shell company network that had hidden Reeves's crimes became evidence in federal prosecutions. Media outlets across the country began investigating similar patterns in their cities, discovering the nationwide scope of manufactured decline operations. Detroit uncovered property manipulation around destroyed veteran programs. Atlanta found media bribes connected to eliminated senior centers. Phoenix revealed systematic targeting of Native American youth organizations. But the most satisfying transformation occurred within BNC Studios itself. Bradley Krause's moment of moral courage had awakened something in him that years of cruelty had buried. Standing before the cameras after Reeves's arrest, he made an announcement that shocked the entertainment industry. "Truth bomb ends today," he declared, his voice carrying genuine emotion for the first time in his career. "Tomorrow, we begin Community Champions, a program dedicated to highlighting the positive work being done in neighborhoods across America. We will build up instead of tearing down." Monica was hired as the new producer with a mandate to repair the damage done to previous victims. Her first episodes would feature Pastor Mitchell's rebuilt after-school program, Rita Santos's expanded mentorship network, and the community leaders who had found their voices through adversity. Jenny Rodriguez became an investigative researcher, her careful documentation proving crucial to multiple prosecutions. The young woman who had discovered the conspiracy by accident had found her calling in ethical journalism that served truth rather than power. Thomas Butler's whistleblower testimony led to a complete restructuring of development regulations, creating safeguards against future manufactured decline operations. His courage in risking everything for principle inspired other corporate insiders to report corruption they had witnessed. 6 weeks after Reeves's arrest, Donnie Yen stood in his renovated and expanded martial arts school, watching twice as many students practice forms that taught discipline, respect, and the true meaning of strength. 3 months later, 5:30 a.m., Donnie Yen performed his morning ritual in the same Beverly Hills hotel room where this journey had begun. But the letters spread across his small table now told stories of transformation that reached far beyond one man's dignified response to cruelty. The Community Defenders Network had grown to chapters in 40 cities, all using Yen's combination of patient strategy and moral courage to protect local programs from predatory interests. Each group adapted his philosophy to their specific challenges, creating a movement that was simultaneously unified in purpose and diverse in application. Community Champions had become appointment television for millions of Americans hungry for stories that built up rather than tore down. Pastor Mitchell's program now had permanent funding and national recognition, serving as a model for faith-based community development. Rita Santos led a nationwide network of mentorship programs that had expanded to include boys as well as girls, recognizing that healing communities required lifting up all their children. Marcus Washington had opened 2 additional schools, using martial arts as a vehicle for teaching conflict resolution and community leadership. The discipline that began with physical forms extended naturally to emotional control, academic achievement, and service to others. Most remarkably, Carlos Mendez, the young gang member who had met Yen in jail, had become one of his most dedicated students and now taught younger children in East LA. His transformation from violence to wisdom exemplified the possibility that any life could change direction when offered authentic guidance and genuine respect. International recognition had followed. Universities invited Yen to speak about community organizing and moral leadership. The United Nations referenced his work in reports about urban development and human rights. But the honors that meant most to him were the handwritten letters from students whose lives had been changed not by his martial arts skills, but by his example of choosing dignity over retaliation. His phone buzzed with the morning's first message, a community leader in Baltimore, asking for guidance about resisting a development project that threatened local programs. The movement had become self-sustaining, spreading organically as people recognized that they didn't have to accept the destruction of what they had built. Yen placed a new photograph beside his mother's portrait, the diverse group of children from his expanded school, all races and backgrounds training together, their faces bright with the confidence that came from knowing their own strength. He whispered to his mother's image in Cantonese, his daily promise renewed. "I kept my word, Mama. True strength protects the innocent and builds up the weak." Outside his window, the city awakened to possibilities that seemed impossible just months before. Communities stronger because one man had chosen wisdom over anger, truth over revenge, and building up over tearing down. If you like the story, please watch another story on our channel and subscribe to the channel.